Welcome back to another episode of our podcast, CRE, The Unspoken Truth.
What
I'm
what
here
number
with,
are we on? What are we doing? Where are
we're
we?
we're like 30 or so episodes in. So we've been doing it one a month now for over 2 years. I think we started in the summer of 2023. Our
Good.
topic today, we're going to do a deep dive, a little different, deep dive into two different deals, and get Craig's thoughts on those deals. And so I want to start. We're going to do one kind of cookie cutter, right down the middle type of deal, and then we're going to end on a complex deal. Craig's going to give us a thought. So let's start. You have a cookie cutter deal in mind, so I want to hear what do you have prepared?
So one of the things that makes brokers careers is the ability to close transactions that are supposed to be closed on a regular basis. So we've done over 4,000 me and my team over 4,000 transactions in the 41 years we've been doing business. I personally was closing 80 deals a year. So of those 80 deals a year, you're trying to make 70 of them or more cookie cutter deals where they're just transactions that are in your pipeline that you close. So the number one thing and we'll talk about this. I'll just give you. I'm representing a law firm in town. The law firm's 15 years old. When I met them, they had done two transactions previously when they started the firm, and then they had done another deal, and both of those were in sublease spaces. They started a sublease transaction, and then they moved and did another sublease in the law firm space. So when I met them, the idea was these guys, they already told me what they want. They want a sublease deal. Other brokers are like, let me show you some other space. I'm like, I get it. You guys want sublease space. I'm like, I'm not going to show you anything unless it's sublease space. So first of all, the thing is that what we want to do, I have three rules on any transaction, and certainly on these cookie cutter ones is right. First, build the relationship. We talk about this on every podcast that we have. First, build the relationship, because that 1,000-foot deal, I'll give you an example. One of my examples, and this is net JDA Software. Suzanne Yeager, there were three people who founded, or two people who founded JDA Software, Jim D. Armstrong and Fred Pecos. And they had one full-time employee. Her name was Suzanne Yeager. And they were looking for 1,000 square feet. She did the tour. Jim and Fred didn't do it. I just met her. She liked me, introduced me to Jim and to Fred. And I did 50 transactions with JDA as they grew across the world. I'm still friends with Jim and Fred today, 30 years later. And that was a 1,000-foot deal. So I learned, build the relationship first, right? The number two, which is where I think brokers always put this number one, get it done. But that's number two for me. Build the relationship was first, get it done was number two. And then number three for me is get more biz. Now, what that means is it mean I'm going to get more of their biz, or potentially going to get them, turn them into an influencer and get more business because they're now an influencer. So those are the three goals that I have on every transaction. So that's always in my mind. So on this transaction with Mitchell Stein, which is a law firm, so I got him. I'm representing him. I find him a sublease deal, and we get it done. And guess cookie cutter, it's done. And right after it gets done, the main tenant, the sublessor, defaults on their lease. So now it's a cookie cutter deal, turns into a complex deal. So now we got to negotiate a termination of the sublease. We have to go find them another sublease deal, which we did. So now I've built the relationship because we had a deal done. Now I've done two for the price of one. So this is 5 years ago. So right now we're negotiating and finishing their first deal. We put them into a sublease deal, and the market's gone crashed so bad that the landlord now is so competitive that they're actually going to renew and do their first deal direct. But that's because we've built the relationship now. And I just think about this all the time. This is my third deal I've done with them. It was a cookie cutter deal. They're very good guys. They're the best at what they do. And in the interim, I've referred two or three people to them and their specialty, whatever their law specialty is. And so now I have a relationship with them. They've referred deals to me. I've asked them for attorneys' names on specific things that I need. And so now I've turned a cookie cutter deal into a relationship.
Yeah.
I've gotten business from it, and I've gotten additional business.
Yeah. So the three rules, build a relationship at every opportunity you get and have the long-term view there, right? So
Yep.
your
Yep.
example is perfect. Number two, get the deal done. Number three, get more business. And so I want to dive into each of those a little bit. We talk on all of these about relationships. It's a recurring theme of our podcast here. So when you're trying to build a relationship, give me three things you can do to build that relationship. One, you talked about refer them business or introduce them to other people. What are two other things you could do to help
Well,
further the relationship?
competency and excellence in what you do is the number way to do that. I'm amazed at how many average brokers there are in our business that are making money. But if you're really, really good at the best of what you do, and people acknowledge that, which they would acknowledge now that I'm, in my little world, not bragging, in my little world, I'm one of the best at what I do and have been. So, so that is what stands people out. It's like, don't be an average broker. Don't fucking be an average broker. Don't be an average relationship building. Be a great broker. Dot the I's, cross the T's. I'll give you an example that happened yesterday. We did a deal with a tenant. They move into the building. The landlord builds out their space and they don't pay the subs. The subs put a lien on my tenant. So now my tenant's got a lien on there. And so their bank calls them and says, what's this lien for? It's not even for my tenant. It's the sub putting the lien on the building, but it shows up under my tenant's name. My tenant calls me, he's pissed. Now this is an area where every broker goes, oh yeah, I'll make the call. I set this every single week. I called this gal who was the property manager for a week. I got the lien release yesterday. 6 months took me to get it. Every single week, I followed up with her. Every 2 weeks, I followed up with my client, showing him I'm still on this. You don't need to worry about it. I'm going to take care of it. Get it done. This is what I'm doing. Blah, 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 blah. I didn't make a dime off of that. It was a pain in the ass. I could have told my guy to call direct, but I'm like, no, I'm doing this. I put you in this building. I'm going to take care of it. You go run the business.
Yeah.
And he was willing to go do it. And I'm like, no, this is what I do for a living. I want the relationship.
Yeah.
And so I got props from them going, thank you for your, tenacious follow-up with these assholes.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things to do is, as a broker, brokers do work for free, right? You
All
regularly
the time.
have to tour space and do stuff that it's not leading to a fee. And this is a prime example of a pain in the ass type of task on your plate for 6 months that no one wants to do this, but it's all in the name of, they're going to trust you, they're going to go back to you, and it's really easy to justify not having to do that stuff. And so,
and here's the
goes a
crazy
long way.
part. Nick Whitehouse, our young partner, worked with me on it. I actually asked him to follow up, but he was doing a shitty job of it. I'm like, dude, you are losing the narrative here.
Yeah.
I said, I'll take it over to show him what it means to have tenacity. He's 26 or 7 years old. He doesn't know what tenacity. This is tenacity. This gal was so. I'm like, I guarantee you, the very first bill she paid was this lien, because I was in her kitchen every day. I call on her cell phone, texting. I got her cell phone, I got her email, I got her text, and it's like, when you get this is going to get done. And I'm trying to show my young guys, like, this is how we build relationships. So this client this is not the law firm, but this client will use us again because they're like, these guys they have my back.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's building the relationship. Any opportunity you get, have the long-term view, go above and beyond, right? Be competent, excellent, and do more than your job description. Number two, you said get it done. What's one or two things that you would say in terms of like, hey, it's a cookie cutter deal. Let's just get this thing done.
Well, there's always going to be an issue. We get paid. There's issues, and we get paid to know what the big issues are. And we get paid to know what let's not major in the minor, right? There's a great Danish word. It's Myrnakker, and it was learned it from Bill Lee. And Myrnakker, they have the crate words. It means ant fucker. And what it means is he's majoring in the minor, right? They're taking little tiny ant issues and they're making them big issues. And so I'm like, I always like, I learned this from my attorney, Chuck Lotzar. He's been my personal attorney for 30 years. He's like, that's never going to happen. Not a big issue. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So people call me, that's not a big issue. And or they'll call and this is a big issue. We're dealing when we have another law firm we're representing today. And Nick wanted to counter back at, dollar bumps, which are standard in our market. And I'm like, no, the market's changing. We want to do flat for 3 years because this is we're leading the market. We're the brokers who are the best in the business. We're going to lead the marketplace. So we're going to take stands on bigger issues, and we're going to let these other issues go. So getting it done means you get it done when you settle on the deal. Get the deal done. Don't try and major in the fact that I'm going to defend my client when it's not a big issue. I don't
Well,
want to be a mirror knocker.
I think young brokers, they look at every issue as an opportunity to fight for their client and an opportunity to, do the right thing for their client. And I think the intention is right, but I think it's they lose sight of the big picture, and it ends up creating a bigger issue for everybody, more
Well,
chaos.
I have personal experience with this. Jim Watkins, who's just retired, he's been my partner for 40 years. The very first deal I did, I was not a broker. I was in-house. I did it. The very first deal I did with Jim, I was a mirror knocker. I was this young guy. I think I was the smartest guy in the room. And Jim really coached me into that. So I got super lucky having Jim Watkins in my life before I sat next to him for 40 years. Then I got really lucky when I sat next to him. He showed me like, this isn't that big a deal. Let this go. This is what's going to make this deal. And he took the time to teach me. It still took me another 10 years to figure it out. On the other side, the new kids coming in town, they're pals with each other. So they're never wanting to negotiate. So to your point, you think they're going to over negotiate? I'm watching my young guys go, you rolled over on that? Are you kidding me? We have to protect our clients. So there is a middle ground that goes in here. We don't want to be a mirror knocker, but we don't want to be, hey, I'm pally with the best friend at JLL.
Right.
That's not working either.
Right. Right. Third point, get more business, right? Cookie cutter deal. You're building the relationship. You got to get it done and get more business. What are one or two things you do there?
Well, the hardest part about our business, the hardest part, Brad Lemon and I were hiking this morning. He gets to talk to his clients all the time.
Yeah.
The hardest part about our business, I developed this incredibly good relationship. I do this great deal with somebody. I put them in their deal, in their space. They move in. I talk to them. I go look at their space. And then I got 4 years and 10 months what do I do? And during that 4 years and 10 months, they're going to meet another broker. Somebody's going to call them. They're going to talk to the office manager. They're going to come in. It's super hard. So when we say get more business, it's like first it starts with get this business again.
Yeah.
Just trying to, I've stolen plenty of people, and sad to say, sucks. I've had people steal deals from me, and I'm like, God dang it. It's the worst thing in the world when you show up at your listing and some other broker shows up with your deal that you did, and you go, hey, Joe, how you doing? Why are you working with this guy? Are you kidding me? I've been calling you for 6 months.
Right. We have a thing in OneSource. It's your money to lose, and it's lease expirations. And so it's like, these are your clients. Stay in front of them. Don't forget about their lease. Don't forget about
that's
their
why
business,
we build
right?
prospects. That's why we build DealView. DealView is these active deals, and then you do a deal and you don't get paid on it.
Right.
And so there's all these ways that people can lose. And if you're not on your game, then you're not using the technology like DealView or prospects. You're not creative. Other people are. And so first you get your business, and then if you develop the relationship, they're going to give you somebody else. Who's your biggest customer? Who are you working with now? And you go, oh, you know that guy? And LinkedIn's easy. If you buy a Navigator, you can find out who they're linked with.
Right.
So
good. Build the relationship every opportunity you get the deal done, get more business. And getting more business starts with just get that business again, right? Keep your client.
that's
complex deal. You've done your fair share of complex deals. Is there one that sticks out, or when I say complex deals, what do you think?
there's a whole bunch of brokers in our business who have done 30 years of experience, and they have 1 year experience 30 times. They've done the same thing for 30 years. And those brokers, fine, they make a nice living, they drive a nice car, they're going to be able to retire. That's great. And then there are those brokers who have 30 years experience, and they have 30 years of experience where they've done different transactions. So one of the things that I was always working on, and I always work on in my career, is I always want 2 to 3 really super big, I call them whales or complex deals that I'm working on to make me better. And so that I just wanted that. I always wanted to feel like I was growing. I didn't want to wake up at the end of the year and go, I'm the same broker that I was last year, which is why, if you look in the background, which is why I went out immediately after I made some money and got my CCIM. With, my first 6-figure year, second year in the business, I took $60,000 of the 100 that I made, and I just went and got my CCIM. I flew to a week 6 cities. I took the test. I got it. It's also why I went and got my SIOR, right? SIOR, I wanted to get better. And then finally I got the CCIM or CRE. So those 3 designations, Andrew and I there's only 17 brokers in the world that have all 3 designations. And we're 2 of the 17 on the same team. And that's because we don't want to be the same broker we were last year. So you want to work on transactions that are crazy. Most of the time they don't work. Most of the time they're falling apart, and you learn how these complex deals can fall apart. And you also occasionally they work and you get better.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So there's a deal that we had talked about maybe a few years ago that you had done here locally. And I remember one thing you saying, it was one of the deals you were most proud of because it took 4 or 5 really unique skill sets to be able to put it together. And, I'd be curious to hear more about that and the skills that it took to get a deal like that over the line.
So this has been 10 or 12 years ago now. I was approached by another broker. He was representing Mercedes-Benz. And the Mercedes-Benz dealer was looking for a new location here in town. And so they had earmarked, so they brought me in and they said, look, you're really, and I don't think they exact said this, but I felt like, hey, you're the only guy who could do this. So would you do this? So I said, sure. And so what this was they wanted to be right next to this mall, and they had identified an office building, an 80,000-foot office building that they wanted to acquire. But if they acquired it under their own name, they would have had to pay a big price. They would have had a big issue. And the building was 80% leased, had 10 tenants in it, nine or 10 tenants. So I said, sure. So as a broker, it was interesting because it's not really a brokerage deal per se, because I went in and negotiated. The first thing I did is I negotiated with the seller to buy the office building on my behalf. I formed an LLC on my behalf, acquired the building on my behalf with his money. Okay. Then I had 10 tenants they had leases that I had to go in and I had to terminate each 10 tenants. So I had to go in with the store. I have a user that's going to take over the whole building. I need to terminate your lease. And we terminated all 10 leases for less than $50,000, which was insane. At the time, I thought it would take me $500,000. But then I was able to negotiate all 10 of those. I got them out within 6 months and so at that time, so now I've got an empty building, and we waited a year, and then we flipped it to the ultimate owner, who went in and rezoned it. Now they built this incredibly cool building. They added on to the front of it. They chopped off the building. They turned the back half of the building into car slots, and it's just turned into this incredible. And their sales have gone up 4 or 5 times. Their services up 4 or 5 times. So it's been a huge win for them. And they've now become, we talking about earlier, I've gotten more business from them. They've become super close friends and clients, and I've done more business with them. In fact, he calls me on all his real estate now and says, take care of me. I'll give you an example. He owns a little dealer at 12th Street and Camelback. And, you know, we did this little deal. He said, it's empty. Can you do it? So we did this little Hertz rental car place in this little building that he owns. And Hertz had $40,000 or $50,000 of the TIs. He just said, hey, take care of it, Craig. He's the best delegator in the world. I get paid on it. I got the contractor. We got it built out. We ran the job. We got it done. And like, he's just like, hey, Craig's my real estate guy. This is real estate, isn't it? And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So it's pretty fun. So these complex deals get super into it. It took me a total of 18 months to get the deal done. I had to have termination skills. I had to have buying skills. I had to have lease skills. So it was really, really an interesting play.
Yeah. One of the things I love about commercial real estate brokerage that not everyone does is you can be an entrepreneur. You can be creative, you know, and not everyone is. You know, we talk to brokers all day, every day with one source, and you know, there's a lot of people out there, like you said, doing the same deals the same year, you know, every year for 30 years. And every now and then we talk to, and two people, I had coffee with Andrea Davis, and she's local. She's written a few books. She's creative. Tanner Milne's the other one who comes to mind.
Tanner. Mm-hmm.
You know, super entrepreneurial. Justin Smith, I know over in California. Those three are just off the top of my head. I know there's more, but super creative, entrepreneurial. Justin Smith is going back to get an MBA right now in supply chain logistics to be a better industrial broker. You know, it's like, it's really impressive, you know?
So I found that this isn't brokerage specific. This is people specific. There are some people, my buddy Brad has been a financial planner, advisor for 35 years, and that's what he does. He does not want to be doing what I've done, you know, which is other things like start CRE One Source. He's like, you're crazy. I stick in my, and, you know, I just had coffee with Steve Adelson, and Steve's made way more money than me doing one thing. And so I don't find it bad or good. I'm just saying for me, and I just want our audience to think about it.
Yeah.
For me, I wanted to be a little better broker. So I was pushing the envelope. I'll give you an example. We're learning now because the market's changed, the office market's in the tank. So we did 30 industrial deals this year. So we're learning as a team. We used to be, hey, we're an office team. We get an industrial deal, we refer it out. We don't do that anymore. So we do industrial deals last year. We did 10 medical deals last year. We did 6 or 7 retail deals. We're becoming a specialized team in commercial real estate, not just an office team.
Yeah. And I think my message on that entrepreneurship, the creativity, I do agree. It's not necessarily a good or bad. It is a personality, but it is something this career offers, is the opportunity. And maybe it depends on the firm. Maybe it depends on the brokerage you're at. I'm sure it does, but it does offer the opportunity to be entrepreneurial, creative, and do something, you know, outside your bread and butter, which, you know, ultimately pays off on these complex deals. I think, you know, they go to the people who have the skill sets, the well-rounded skill sets.
Well, I think two things happen. So, you know, we're going to get back to what are the 3 rules on the complex deals. But one of the things that happen is when you lift weights and you push your muscles, and let's say you do curls and you're doing 55-pound curls, the next time you come back, your muscles are a little stronger, and those 55 pounds are a little bit easier. And over a course of a year, those 55 pounds become normalized. And the same thing happens as a broker. If you're doing super complex deals or tricky deals or whatever, when you go back to the bread and butter deals, they become super easy because you strengthen the deal muscle. So the rules that I have on doing complex deals are build the relationship, same as number 1 as a simple deal. Build the relationship. And this becomes way harder because now you're dealing with really complex issues. We're in the middle of a we're landing the biggest deal to ever come in Arizona. We're in the middle of it. We're doing the brokerage deal. And we got the announcement. It's supposedly done, but it's not done. And so I'm in the middle of this super complex. It's a new startup that's coming here, funded by the government, going into Arizona State University, but ASU's got to get our real estate. And so it's super, super complex. But because I've been building these muscles for 40 years, it's not hard for me to do this. It's certainly have to think about it and do it. So, but I on these transactions, you're going to have multiple people. It's not just you and your client. You're building the relationship. There are going to be on complex deals 5 to 7 to 10 different parties that you're trying to build the relationship with, and it's hard to do that. So, building the relationship is one, but it's hard. The second one is you have to use every skill set. I had a conversation with the lady who runs economic development for Arizona yesterday. I've known her 25 years. I've been building that relationship with her. And I had to call her on her cell phone yesterday because she's involved in this transaction and it's going sideways and she needed to know about it. So you need to use people that you would never normally not use. And you need to be okay with that. And if you're not building relationships all over, you're not going to have those.
You don't have that opportunity.
And the third one in here is stay the course. These are really, really complex. They're hard. They don't go smooth. They've died 3 times. They come alive again. And so you just have to put yourself in a position where you're going to see this to the end, whether it happens or doesn't. And the close ratios on these are not high. They may be 10%. If you work on 10, you might get 1 done. I remember the first decade I worked on whales every year and never closed 1. I remember my first whale deal going, finally. It wasn't like great. It was finally.
Yeah. It's more of a breath of relief, right? That it closed.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been usually right there long term too, right? So usually they take, and you're working on it, thinking about it all day for months and even longer.
Well, the toughest part as a broker is you got to do the day-to-day cookie cutter ones while you're doing these, because you can't depend on this. You got to go, look, cookie cutter is how I make a living.
And I'll say, even while you're building the relationship and while you're following up on the lien that the sub put on your tenant, and that's what I was thinking when you were telling that story earlier, is it's so easy not to do that type of work. It's not your job. You could easily give it to your client and say, hey, this is how you do it, go follow up with them. But that is going back to your rules, that is a way to build the relationship. And you're doing it while you're doing the cookie cutters, while you're working on these crazy complex deals, while you're building the relationships, and that's how you build a good business. So
we did 152 transactions last year. So every 2 days we're closing a transaction, and every one of those has issues. We're the middleman, right? We're working on issues to try and get it done. So we're constantly dealing with issues. And what I've realized is the shit's always there. We just have to figure out how to turn into manure and build plants with it. And we've done that. And every broker can do it. You just have to understand. And some brokers have a lot of stress that goes along with it, and I can't deal with this anymore. We used to have a guy walk around, this deal's dying. It's like yelling, and then you're in the wrong business, man.
Right. There's too much.
Go do a startup. If you want to see what's happening, go do a startup and see how.
Yeah. So on the complex deals, build the relationship. And this one's interesting. I put this note, not just with your client, but with the 5 to 7 to 10 other parties that you need great relationships to ultimately get the deal done.
I'll give you an example. On the Mercedes deal, the key guy in that deal was the zoning attorney, John Barry. Man, he got the zoning done, because we're taking an office building and we're turning into a car dealership. That's a zoning. That's the neighbors. You can imagine, this is in the heart of the district. If you come to Phoenix, Arizona, right next to Scottsdale Fashion Square, which is one of the finest malls in the country, right across the street is this Mercedes dealer. You can imagine the neighbors, because there's high-rise apartments and condos all around it. John Barry earned his money on that. He was a stud.
Yeah. Build the relationship with every party. Use every skill set you have. These complex deals. I love the muscle metaphor there. It's like you're gonna build muscle that you may not have, and just by working on it, you're gonna get stronger and stronger. Ultimately, it makes the easy deals, the simple deals, easier. And last, stay the course. I do, they're months or even year-long deals, and you're not gonna, if you don't have follow-up skills, if you don't have commitment, you're not going to be able to close any of those deals.
So I'll give you here's a trivia for you. My longest deal, from the time it was a sale, from the time it opened escrow to the time it closed, how long it was? Take a
I have
guess.
no idea. I would say, yeah, 8 months. I have no idea. I have no
Four
idea.
and a half years.
4.5 years.
Never fell out of escrow. It was a 60-day free look, 30-day close, supposed to close in 90 days. 4.5 years later, we closed it.
What
40,
what
46 addendums to the contract.
just
They did it.
negotiating like a
No,
million times or
they did a phase one, and they found it was an Indian burial ground. They actually did
oh
a
my
phase
God.
one, and they found it was a dumping site. So the first one we found as dumping site, they found old refrigerators had refrigerant in it. They got to clean up the site. When they did the phase one and took out the refrigerators, they dug deeper and they found out it was an Indian burial ground.
No way.
Yeah, they had to repatriate 300 buried Indians. It took a year. You have to bring in tribal leaders. They
Yeah.
have to bless things. They have to move them. So we just kept moving it down the road.
And they still wanted the deal. It
It
was like,
turned out to be a great deal because it's at 44th and Van Buren. It's a apartment complex that they
by
killed it
the
on. So
airport.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
they did great on it. Four
Wow.
and a half years.
Ah,
So there you go.
it's crazy. Deep dive into two different types of deal, a simple deal and a complex deal. So the three rules on the simple, and just in summary here, build a relationship every opportunity you get. Number two, get it done. Don't minor in the or don't major in the minor details. And then number three, get more business, right? And that can be intros and on the complex deals, number one, build the relationship, always relationship first. And this one has a little asterisk, not just with your client, but also the 5 to 10 other parties that are involved. Number two, you're gonna use every skill set you have. And three, stay the course. Commitment, follow up, follow through wins in the complex deals.
This was a good one.
It's a great one. Thanks so
There you go.
much. And until next time.